Well, we have not had a Legacy Talks in a minute, and it is wonderful that we have a guest today that is going to help us talk about some material that makes sense for Black History Month. It makes sense for the way the world is turning right now, all of the issues that are going on that's causing some of us some angst. And we need to know how to really understands ourselves and our positioning and what we could do to make a difference. And I've known this person, I really don't know, can't remember how long I've known Dr. Alex Graham, but we've intermingled in various circles, and I've gotten to know her very well over the last year or two. And she's very always open and honest. And I was hoping that she would share with us what she's doing with her life's work right now, how she is impacting, her inner circles and the community at large. So she can help us empower ourselves to have a voice for change, and a voice to listen to our inner voice, empower ourselves to listen to our inner voice so we can understand the power that we hold within ourselves. So we can have an influence over our surroundings and our actions. So I'm going to be quiet, and I'm going to ask Dr. Graham to, if you would please introduce yourself, just tell us a little bit about where you're from, your background, and what you're doing today.
Oh, thanks, Angie. It's so good to be here with you to have this conversation. Um, as I heard someone say when I came to Mississippi, is that I finally got here. I've been on this journey apparently for a long time, coming to Mississippi from Chicago, where I grew up, and then went to Spelman. And while I was at Spelman, fell in love with the South, but I had to go back to Chicago after I finished school. And Chicago is kind of uh, my soil, if you will. And I have been digging in that soil through my work as a teacher. Um, I have taught in seminary, I've taught grammar school, I've taught high school, and I've taught graduate school. And each of those places, each of those environments has helped me learn more about myself, as well as helped me to understand how trauma impacts and limits the development of my fellow human beings, including myself, because I am also a victim of trauma. Mm. Um, I went to Spelman. Then I did an MDiv, a Master's of Divinity at Garrett Evangelical Theological Seminary, and then did a PhD in pastoral psychology and counseling at Northwestern in Evanston, Illinois. Following that, I was involved in pastoral counseling as a pastoral psychotherapist for some 20 years. Ended up developing my own pastoral counseling center. Got burnt out with that work in Washington, D.C., and then moved to North Carolina, where I was on faculty, a professor of pastoral care and counseling at Hood's Theological Seminary. And it's from Hood that I came to Mississippi. And I came after Hurricane Katrina. Yeah. A colleague in ministry asked me to think about what I could do to contribute to the recovery from Hurricane Katrina. She said, bring down a group of your students. I thought she was just going to ask me for a check. And so, as I tended to do, I did a lot of research on disaster recovery and developed a course for my advanced level pastoral counseling students, thinking no one would take the course because it required a week in Mississippi on the coast. I had 7 advanced level students who took the course,
Wow.
and we came to Mississippi. And here again, let me talk about this is another an incident of trauma. When I was 10 years old in Chicago, Emmett Till was killed.
Mm.
My mother hid the magazine, the Jet magazine, where the pictures of his body were shown.
Mm.
She didn't want me to see it. I found the book
Oh.
and I found the pictures.
Mm.
And at that moment, I promised myself I would never, ever go to Mississippi because that's where, as a Black person, you would be killed.
Yeah.
Now, that was my 10-year-old self. Never thought about it again. Even when my friend uh, invited me to come to Mississippi and made all the arrangements, got my students on the van to come to Mississippi after they had taken the course, I had a meltdown on the van.
Oh.
And I was frantic and I couldn't figure out why I was so upset.
Mm.
And I'm telling my students, we're going to stay together. We're not going to get separated. Wherever one goes, all of us are going. I mean, it was like I had lost my touch with reality.
Yeah.
We got to the coast, restaurant over in Ocean Springs. We stopped for dinner, and the hostess asked one of the students, where are you all from? And so the student, said, well, we're from Salisbury, North Carolina. We've come to help. And the hostess turned around to the patrons in the restaurant and announced that we had come to help in the recovery after Katrina. The restaurant broke out in applause.
Oh my gosh.
Now, this is particularly significant as my students were both Black and white. And so in that moment, I regained my connection to reality.
Yeah.
And was then able to proceed on.
Ugh.
But that's what happens with trauma when it's unidentified, when it's left to fester. Something, I mean, you can completely forget about it. I'd never thought about that until that moment on that van. And even then, I couldn't put it together until later. As I began to think about it, I said, that's where that's was
where
the
it came from.
genesis of the triggering.
So now today you have, is it what we call it, a consulting business, or what? How would we like? I hate to reduce it to a business. So, but attorney.
Well, it is a business.
Okay.
I decided not to make it a nonprofit.
Okay.
I decided to offer workshops, experiences that would allow people to develop a practice of mindfulness. You don't get mindful by declaration. You don't want to wake up and say, okay, today I'm going to be mindful. It's a practice. And it has to be intentional. And so my workshops are designed to develop the participants understanding that silence does not have to be scary, but you have to learn how to be comfortable with your own silence.
Can you identify what that means? What silent in a room, silent
silent
with people, silent by yourself? Like what do you mean?
Silence by yourself. We have many distractions that can keep us away from hearing our own internal voice. And I really think even the divine, we can't hear the divine because we're constantly being bombarded with information, with demands, with distractions, with everything that's external. And so we can get lost in the external. One of an example right now is that I have had to reduce my television time. I'm a news junkie. I want to know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I could find myself watching television. I mean, the news is on and I'm listening up until the recent election. I would be on it. And I had to face the fact that I was being triggered. I was not sleeping well. I was full of anxiety and I was fearful. And all of that is from my history in this country. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Kamala Harris's loss was more than just a loss of an election. It was a loss of a dream. It was a loss of a possibility that I personally thought, and I know many other people thought, if we can do this, this means we have really come this far.
Yeah.
And the loss of that really put me in touch. So what I'm saying is I've had to reduce my television time. I watch my scrolling because I can get lost in that. There are many interesting things that show up on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to, and I love being with people, but I also know that I need downtime. I have to have quiet time.
Well, that's what I really appreciate what you're saying because I think you know me well enough to know that I don't have downtime and I don't have quiet time. I've actually gotten to the point where for me to settle down, I have to have something running in the background. And that's just weird. I mean, like, instead of preferring quiet, I almost have to have the TV on to be able to settle down. I don't know what that is, but what
it's
I
a
love about
distraction. It's a distraction.
Distraction. Yeah. Okay. That's
yeah.
Yeah.
And Angie, it sometimes we need distractions. Sometimes we need to not be engaged. The issue is it all the time? Mm-hmm. The issue is, do you ever find time when you can just be quiet with yourself? And if you're used to having noise, then my suggestion is you maybe change it to music rather than someone talking.
I like that.
So you find another way to kind of ease in. And I've been meditating using silence for over 30 years.
Oh wow.
And I sometimes can't get quiet because there's too much that I'm dealing with. Yeah. But I don't get into judgment of that. I just say, oh, this was a noisy time.
I like it.
Okay.
Okay.
Because the other thing is when we start getting into self-judgment about, oh, I didn't do it, or I couldn't do it. I'm too this, I'm too that. That makes it even harder to quiet down.
Yes. Yes.
So to give yourself space and okay. And sometimes my quiet time is, okay, breathe. Just breathe. And it may take me an entire 20-minute segment before I finally get quiet. And then the time, I've used up my quiet time to get quiet.
Yeah. Hey,
but
that's
that's
okay. I
okay.
like it.
That's okay. Because
Well,
what I found that even when that happens, the quiet time has still been beneficial.
okay. I like that.
So
Um,
self-judgment, quiet time helps us listen to our self-talk.
yes. I'm writing this stuff down.
Most of us are so self-critical.
Hmm.
Well, I should have done this. I could have said that. Why didn't I act this way? Why did I go?
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I give myself, I try to limit it. If I'm going to do a self-criticizing moment, I'm going to give myself 10 minutes. That's it.
That's it.
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
The next thing, what am I learning? What am I learning about myself?
Okay.
It's the self-criticism that gets in the way of us allowing, or it's one of the things that can get in the way of allowing ourselves to get quiet.
Okay. I mean,
Um,
I like and appreciate what you're saying, because what it does is armor you up in a way to be able to go out into the community and then to then take in all the stimuli, for yet another day. Um, what
but,
I Go ahead.
and there are many ways to get quiet. Walking, just walking and paying attention to nature, getting out in nature in some kind of way. Or uh, I sometimes will just walk around the mall that
Hmm.
I'm near,
Okay.
and not make myself not go in a store, just walk.
Yes, that's hard. That's hard.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's hard. I love to shop.
Yeah. But then again, we have a beautiful beach here too. So I want to shift the conversation to, um that it sounds like a way to rejuvenate, but also, what the way in which we stay in touch, is through conversations about topics that are going on, and it helps to commiserate with like-minded individuals, but also to hear the opinions of people that may not, always agree with the things that, the way with our world view.
Mm-hmm.
Talk a little bit about how important it is, to stay connected to others. And again, when I invited you to talk, really as a Black History Month series, um, really not because you're a woman of a certain age, which you're very very proud about, but because you are living history in the accomplishments that you have, throughout your life, to include, the degrees and, um, in things that you've generated. And for me, every time we get to the conversation, you come very well prepared, with poems and quotes and, you know documents that are able to help one, decide what they're going to think, or iterate what they already thinking, or to draw out something within my spirituality. Does that make sense? Like, it doesn't, it's not always, it's not academic, it's, emotional. And
You
so I
know,
just want to talk about why you spearheaded that, and the how why it's so important in this day and age to stay connected to others.
first of all, I think it's extremely important to not isolate. And it's important to be intentional about who you connect with. Um, I've learned this over the years that I have to be with people who can support forward movement, who can be encouraging, who can raise questions, but without judgment. Um, some folks have been so wounded that they can't be positive, and that's very sad. But in my relational group, it's very difficult for me to be with people who are very negative, pessimistic, and cynical. That drains my energy. Now, if I was their therapist, that would be a different thing.
Yeah.
But I'm not their therapist. And I no longer practice. So, that's the other thing. But we started the conversation, Stacy, Riley, and I. We had a conversation soon after I retired. And we were just talking about the challenge of being in the nonprofit field in a context that didn't support our values, where we had to be careful, we had to be self-aware enough of our speaking to not offend people who might be future donors and that kind of thing, how to negotiate those lines. And that was stressful. So Stacey and I talked about it. I said, well, why don't I see if I can get a group of people together who share these values, who are working in the nonprofit space, and need a safe place to just be. Mm-hmm. And that's how we started the conversation, with a small group. It started out with about 5 of us, and we started, different people invited other people. You were invited. We ended up, I think now we have about 15 on the list.
Yeah.
And it's designed to be conversation. It's designed to be a debriefing place, a place where I don't have to be on stage. I don't have to be in charge. I don't have to watch who I am.
Yeah.
And the needs around the table are so very different. The personalities are so very different. We don't always agree. Some of us want something to happen right away. Okay, we've identified this problem. Let's fix it. And we have to kind of step back and say, okay, but we're not, those problems need to be fixed. But where's the arena for that? Where does that need to happen? Okay. So I have found it useful that it's both black and white. So we're not just talking to other Black folk, which I think is important.
Yeah.
And we're raising difficult issues. You've been there. We raise the difficult issues. We raise our own trauma experiences.
Yeah.
We try to be in that space, in that safe space, as honest as we can. And I think we need to have those small groups. If the group was much larger, if it was, it wouldn't work.
Right.
So people have to find that group. And if they don't have it, they need to figure out a way to create it, a safe place to be real.
Yeah. I like it. Okay. So we're going to wind down here. I wanted to ask you if you had an historical figure that you would want to meet.
Who would it be? My hero is Harriet Tubman.
Oh, nice. Nice. What do you know about her that you would want to share with everybody else, and why?
Oh, well, Harriet Tubman had this husband initially. And she escaped, and she made all these plans to go back and get him. And when she went back, he had hooked up with somebody else.
Oh.
For some reason, it was painful for her. I am absolutely sure but for some reason, that makes her so human to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say I know that there's a lot of other attributes that she had that you could probably
Yeah. I
that
mean,
everybody else knows about it. But this one,
right. I mean, she did wonderful things. I mean, amazing woman, a woman of faith, tremendous faith.
wow.
And I do believe that when she would have what they call those, when she would fall out and be unconscious, I think she was communing with the spirit.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what I believe.
I believe.
And so she would come out of that. Um, but she lived her life looking to see what needed to be done, and she did it. Um, if I could have half the courage that she had, I mean, I don't know what I'd be doing, but
That's right. That's right. Because you're full steam ahead now. What do you want to say? I have two more questions. What do you want to say about turning points from the soul? What is this a situation when you say you don't you're retired from counseling? Then what charge do we give people to contact you for what for? You know what I mean? Like, or is it something that you would get out to the community when you're ready to do a workshop? What is it?
well, right now, I've been involved in some trainings around healing racism. And I'm working now on what I'm trying now to develop is a series um, uh, around that issue. Because, and it's not just about racism, it's about developing practices where you engage intentionally in understanding the soil that has conditioned you. And then what in that soil allows you to grow. So it's not just about racism, because racism is a social construct that crosses so many boundaries. And so if you can if you can begin to deal with the traumas of race, you can deal with the traumas of anything.
Yeah. And that's why it's so interesting. Some of the pop culture things that I'm into it. Like I think it's They or Them. Well, it's a show on Prime or Max, and it was done by Jordan Peele,
Oh yeah.
the one who did Get Out and some other things, and it's he creates this caricature, a horror figure, um that's really like a Bojangles type character, white face, and such. And it's supposed to be scary, but really it's a manifestation of um what we have been told we are, which is buffoons, that we are dumb, uneducated, and it this figure traumatizes and haunts the main characters
Yeah.
throughout the series. And then really as you go through the series, this you see that this figure that is supposed to be fictional, and as it haunts these figures, the main characters, begins to drive them crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And they begin to think that they're insane, that they're inept, that they have an inability to perform. And really it encapsulates what we go through every day. We
Yes.
are, if we don't have we have a seat at the table but not given a voice, or we don't have a seat at the table, we're fighting for it. We have to hold our purses so people don't think that we're shoplifting. We gotta, hide our hands, so or show our hands so we're not arrested. And so the fact that we're able to move through life with all of these restrictions and all of these things, stereotypes and other things that are put on us, and the fact that we saw many of us absolutely suffer from mental illness because of it, but we're functioning. We're functioning in a
Yeah.
way that so many other individuals in this world could not function. given the parameters and the disenfranchisement and things that are put on us. And so doing some of the things that you're talking about, getting quiet, staying connected with other individuals so we can have a voice and make sure that we know that we're not crazy, that we have a shared experience in this. You have done that for me. And so that's I think, and that to me, that is, you know, Black history, and for us to be able to continue the charge of change, um, and exist without going insane, we need each other. And so,
Yeah. Um, I think one of the dilemmas that we have is that we have all of these projections onto us and they stick. And frankly, the only way to deal with that is for us to do the unsticking. We have to do the work to affirm our value. Because if we wait for the external world to affirm our value, it still isn't us.
I got it.
We've got to do our internal work. Yeah. And I want to suggest a couple of books.
And that was my last question. Can you give us some resources?
All right.
Please.
What Makes You Come Alive? By Loretta Coleman Brown.
Okay, and I'll put this in the copy points in the post. That's great.
Okay. And it's really a discussion of Howard Thurman. And anything by Howard Thurman is worth a read. But she does a really good job of bringing his work to life for this generation.
Okay, and then and there's also some newsletters. Or you go ahead. You weren't finished. Go ahead.
Okay. Eddie Glaude's.
Yes,
We
Lord.
Are the Ones We Have Been Looking For.
Yeah.
Richard Rohr has a daily meditation, and this is particularly good for Christians because he really breaks down the misinterpretation, the misinformation about Christianity. So that's one.
Spell that last name because it's a
Rohr.
Yeah, Rohr. Okay.
And he has a book for people who are middle-aged, I guess, Falling Upward. It's excellent. Falling Upward, Richard Rohr. And there's one that I have found helpful. I haven't read it as thoroughly as I should have, but I'm going to mention it. What Happened to You? Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey.
Oh.
And I have books and books, so I'm going to stop there.
I love it. No, this is perfect. This is great. I mean, and this is what it's all about, is sharing information and staying connected. So, any last words? Just any?
We are living in challenging times as Black people, but we have our ancestors as beacons of light. They have gone through much worse. We can gather strength from our history to move through this phase. Stay engaged. Find people moving forward. Find something that you are concerned about and create a group around that. We don't all have to do everything, but we all have to do something.
I love it. Okay, well, I do appreciate you, and I know that I'll see you at you're always supportive of our legacy events, so we'll see you there. And I'm just glad that we were able to get you on camera and on film talking about what you have going on. So if I'm going to put some contact information and the website information in the link with this as well. So if anybody needs to get in touch with Dr. Alice Graham, you can do so. So happy Black History Month. Every day is Black History.
And Black
You know
history
that?
is American
That's
history.
right. That's our American history is Black history, or
There you
vice versa,
go.
all the way around. So
All right.
I'm just glad we would take a moment to reflect. So I'll be talking to you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Angie. Can we go?